Hi everyone. Okay, let's get started. Thanks for your patience. So just to introduce myself, my name is Elaine Chatham. I'm the Senior Manager of Global Market Development for TerraWorks. In my role, I get to speak to lots of interesting organizations trying to improve their visibility into what's happening in the field. And one of the biggest issues that holds them back is not getting accurate information, which is why it's such a driver for switching to mobile technology. So you can certainly improve the accuracy, improve data accuracy with mobile technology, and we at TerraWorks have put in ways to prevent errors, but we found that there's also a process component of ensuring data quality. So I'm looking forward in this webinar to an engaging discussion where we can talk about how one organization has started putting processes in place to ensure data quality. And I also want to have the chance to get your insight into what's worked for you. So we're really excited to have TechnoServe's Kevin Zeigler share his experience with everyone today. Kevin has been working with the monitor and evaluation team in Latin America and has been implementing TerraWorks throughout various countries and projects there. Now, before I turn it over to him, I'd like to start off with a poll to get a sense of why people are here today. Specifically, what are the types of issues with data quality that you currently have? So I'm going to launch this poll here. While we're collecting data on that, I'm just going to go over some housekeeping rules. So you should be able to just click on the screen there. So first thing, the webinar is being recorded. Because there's so many people on the call, everybody is automatically on mute. So if you have a question or a comment, please type it in or raise your hand, and I'll unmute you to ask it. And feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. And not just questions. We want to hear how you're all dealing with data quality issues. So if you have examples of things that have worked for you, please also raise your hand. I'm sure all of your fellow participants would also be interested to hear. And also when I do unmute you, please state your name and your organization, and I'll remind you of that as well when I do that. So with that, let me close this poll and see what we're dealing with here. So it looks like an overwhelming majority are dealing with missing information coming from the field and general typos. Okay, that's really interesting. Sounds about right. Okay, so let me hide the results here, and then I will hand it over to Kevin. Let's see. Kevin, hopefully you have the presenter now.
Yep, and let me know if you guys can see my screen.
I can, yep, I can see it.
All right.
All right, take it away.
All right, thanks, Elaine. So a quick introduction of myself. Again, my name is Kevin Zeigler. I am a Special Projects Manager at TechnoServe. My role is largely around designing and developing database systems for use in monitoring and evaluation, most recently, as Elaine pointed out, in the Latin America region. A quick overview of kind of some of the topics I want to touch on today with you guys. I'll give you a brief overview of TechnoServe, who we are, what we do, where we work, things like that. A bit of overview on where we were in Latin America, some of the data quality challenges that we were having with our project level M&E systems. We'll jump into our regional database and how we are using Salesforce and TerraWorks at a regional level for all of our projects in Latin America. Finally, I'll get into how to use reporting from Salesforce to help you automate your data cleaning and data integrity management processes within your organization. And then lastly, just on some highlights, some challenges, and finally a few additional tips on how you can use Salesforce and TerraWorks to help manage your data quality with the surveys that you guys are collecting. So without further ado, TechnoServe is a nonprofit implementation organization. We work with enterprising people in the developing world, basically to build competitive farms, businesses, industries. We focus largely on market systems that have and unmet demand that have a lot of potential for inclusive growth, where our beneficiaries can benefit as producers, entrepreneurs, employees, consumers, and the like. And finally, we focus on market systems that have high potential for scale and allow us to really reach the most number of people possible. This is slightly outdated, but I wanted to kind of point out, just to give you guys a baseline of where we kind of typically are. We worked in over 40 countries in the past years. Last year we had active projects in 29 countries across our regions, which are Latin America and the Caribbean, West and Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, and Asia. So from the map, not sure if you guys can tell, we are a rather decentralized organization. We derive a lot of our innovations and new processes, new ideas for projects from the field level. And then those innovations are supported and encouraged from our kind of headquarter team, which is in Washington, D.C. So when we start off looking at a regional database in Latin America, we really kind of took a look at all of the projects that were out there, and these are projects that range from agricultural projects to entrepreneurship projects, some kind of workforce development type projects. And one thing that we noticed across the board was that we really had a reactionary approach to monitoring and evaluation. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. You know, you get started with project, and there's really no M&E plan that was built into the project from the start. So, you know, 6 months or a year goes by, it's time for donor reporting, and oh no, we don't, how do we collect this data? How do we manage this data? You know, what are other projects doing? You know, maybe we don't have the time or the resources to implement a full-on system, so we're either just going to go with paper. You know, some of our teams are using Excel. Some of our more IT savvy projects have, you know, either Microsoft Access database or SQL database. Some projects just have nothing, and a wide variety. So we're noticing that there's a wide range of different M&E systems across the board that our project teams were using. And what this really led to was a really disproportionate amount of time for our M&E managers that were spending on focusing on how to actually get the data, rather than putting their time to designing good projects and designing good processes within existing projects to help make informed decisions on course correction or donor reporting or whatever the need may be. So our M&E managers are just swamped with this work that could have easily been prevented had, you know, a formalized system been thought of and properly planned out from the project start. This is a quick example of when I actually started in TechnoServe with a dairy farming project. We're using ODK to collect information, which is actually probably one of the more advanced systems in the region. It was an 11-step process from the time that we created forms in Excel. I'm sure many of you have either tried ODK or maybe currently using ODK and can kind of relate to this process. But from creating the actual form, you have to convert that to an X form, get it to the phones, have to take the survey, and then there's a long drawn-out process to get that data back into a CSV format. Sometimes the date and times don't line up with the way that your Access database or your SQL database or whatever you guys may be using. Sometimes the date formats don't line up. Sometimes the text formats are out of whack. It's just a really long, complicated process, and this is all to get results from one survey. This process has to be repeated for each time you want to roll a new survey. So this was just an incredibly time-consuming. Our M&E manager was spending all of her time doing nothing but cleaning data, trying to get it into the database so that they could get some kind of report out that said something as simple as how many project participants do we have. This is just kind of an overview showing that the multitude of disparate M&E systems that we had, and really the lack of guidance, just created just a slew of data quality problems that we had each team kind of individually tackling on their own. So we have projects where if there's no IT-oriented resources, they couldn't really run queries on their data. They didn't know how to write a SQL query, or they didn't know how the tables were organized to get data out. Maybe there's hundreds of different Excel sheets that are everywhere, that they try and push together to get some kind of data out of them. There were a lot of records that should have been related to another record in a different table, or they're called orphaned records. Had a ton of those, which are just unusable in reporting. It was really difficult to track participants, particularly when their IDs were mismatched or they weren't in the right place. We had a lot of problems with incorrect dates, particularly training session dates. Perhaps training session date said it happened in 1950 or something like that, which is obviously not correct. So we had a lot of problems with that. And probably most importantly, from a project management perspective, there's really no way to learn from the mistakes you're making, because it's really difficult to tell who's making the mistakes in data entry, why they're making those mistakes. And we can't really target any of our guidance that we provide to our field staff, because we don't know ourselves what kind of mistake they're making. We just know that we have data integrity issues. So we turned to TerraWorks, Elaine and her team, to help us basically design and develop and implement a Salesforce TerraWorks solution that would allow all of our projects from the region, and when I say all of our projects, I'm specifically referring to our agriculture projects in the region, which we tackled first. So all of our agriculture projects in Latin America now feed into one Salesforce database that uses a TerraWorks front end on the mobile devices that allows us to basically capture data at the field level, bring that data straight back into our Salesforce instance, and run immediate reporting. So this basically takes us from a setup where we have every project having their own M&E systems, whether it be paper or Excel or Microsoft Access or whatever it may be, which they spend weeks or months creating for their one particular project. And once that project's over, it's done. If the database just kind of gets lost when the field team disperses, or Excel files get lost, it's just a mess. So now we have one central location where all of our projects feed into, and we're able to run reporting at a really nice country level, regional level, project level, whatever kind of the decision calls for. So one of the best features that we found, and why we're here today, is really to talk about data quality and how you can use Salesforce reporting, which is really strong right out of the box, to help you create reports that help identify problematic data for the entire region, or maybe for your entire project or country, however you guys may have your Salesforce instances set up. I like to call the typical thinking around reports is that you create a report to show you what I call positive reporting. So this is, how many participants do I have? Maybe what's the breakdown of male to female? How many training sessions have my participants attended? These are all things that report on data that you have and you know is good. What people often don't think about is that there's a whole other side of reporting that you can use, what I call negative reporting, that basically takes the whole idea of reporting and flips it on its head. So you can create reports that specifically call out records with missing information. So in this particular example, we have reports that identify participants with maybe missing national ID numbers, or maybe participants that don't have a date of birth. We can identify training records that are duplicates, or maybe my previous example where we have training dates that occur in the future. So these are all automated reports that you can run Salesforce that allow you to pinpoint different areas where you know you have data quality issues, identify them on a regular basis, and then farm those reports out to the particular projects. So you basically take the whole burden of IT and running queries and managing their data and bring it up to a regional level or a country level, and then push that down to the projects where the information is best used, and project teams are more closer to the projects than at the regional level may be, so they can say, oh, you know what, yeah, that training date is incorrect, or yeah, we need to track down this participant to get their national ID number or something like that. Again, the reports themselves can kind of be customized to anything that you want to call out in your data. So the example that I have here is what we call our training attendance timestamp cleanup. This is a report that we created that shows any timestamp for a training session that occurs greater than the date of today, or less than when we, the first project could have had a training session, which happened to have been July in 2014. So you can see that right off the bat that Salesforce is using these filters to identify problematic data. So we have trainings that occurred in 2068, which is obviously impossible. So and these filters can be set up to identify any kind of problems that you guys may be having, whether it's dates or timestamps. Maybe there's participant IDs that are mismatched. Basically anything that you have in your database where you could potentially have missing or incorrect information, you can create a filter to show you that. One tip I have when creating these types of reports is to always include the Salesforce ID. So this is the field that's right next to the training attendance ID, or next to the timestamp, apologies. This is Salesforce's unique ID. This allows you to quickly identify whether you guys are using like a data uploader or an Apex loader tool. You can quickly correct hundreds and hundreds of records at a time with this training attendance ID or this particular Salesforce ID. Scheduling reports in Salesforce is really easy. If you guys haven't played with this tool, I really encourage you to do so. It's really powerful and almost takes all the thought process out of cleaning your data because it runs, in this case, runs every Monday at 6 a.m. Reports can be sent to any Salesforce user, so you can create a really flexible data cleaning tool that's customized to each project's need, and then email that out to any of your Salesforce users. So if you want to go to maybe your Salesforce administrator, or maybe you want it to go to the project manager or the country director, whoever needs to see this information, whoever can best act on that information is who the report should go to. There are also plenty of apps in the Salesforce App Exchange which allow you to send reports like this to non-Salesforce users. A couple of our teams in East Africa are playing with a tool called IntelliMail, which allows you basically to send reports to anyone with an email address. So if you have field staff or field staff supervisors that maybe need to follow up with certain participants for missing national ID numbers, you could send them this email on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, whatever the appropriate cadence is for your project, have them act on that information and either directly clean the data themselves in Salesforce if they have a login, or reply back and say, okay, here's the missing national ID numbers, or here's the correct timestamps for these trainings. You can go back in and modify your records accordingly. One other tip that I have for you guys is to set up templates. Our organization relies heavily on Google, so I put them in Google Sheets. This could easily be done in Excel. But you basically create templates that fit really nicely into what's called the Salesforce Data Import Wizard. So once you guys export your training attendance timestamp cleanup or your participant missing ID report and export it into Excel, you can put the CSV file into a really nice template with the headers all matching up to the appropriate titles of the fields in your Salesforce instance, and then use the Data Import Wizard for a quick 5-minute cleanup of potentially thousands of incorrect records. So this is one thing that we've done in the past couple of months that's really saved us a ton of time with organizing our data, cleaning our data, is using these templates. Data can be cleaned in mass. You can kind of start to spot little trends in particular data entry. Maybe it's a particular module, a training module that's giving people errors, or a particular survey that's giving people errors, and you can identify all this from your data export on your report. One of the other things I really recommend, and that's really helped our organization out, is to keep a tracker of these errors that are being submitted through your mobile devices. Cleaning the data is one part in the process of data integrity, and it's obviously good to have clean data and records that accurately reflect the results of the project. But if you don't turn that into a learning opportunity, you're really missing out on the large potential to correct errors before they happen. So what we do is we have this TerraWorks data entry accuracy tracker that's also stored in a Google Sheets, or you could do it in Excel if you wanted to, where we keep track of all of the issues that we have to clean. So every record that we clean, we keep track in this accuracy tracker, and then once a month, maybe once every 6 months, we go through and say, okay, what are the most common issues that we're seeing? Maybe it's people are always screwing up the date. Maybe every single week we have 2 or 3 community trainers or field staff that routinely put a date in the future or a date way in the past. And then it allows you to ask the question, well, why? Maybe it's the way that we're asking the question, or maybe it's that particular field staff isn't as technology savvy as some of the other field staff. So maybe they need a little bit of extra help to understand how to use the mobile phones and how to use the technology to assist them in their day-to-day duties. So this tracker is something that I really recommend anybody who's implementing kind of an automated or scheduled data cleaning process to really consider, because it's really helped us to identify problem spots, not only with particular field staff, but with particular surveys as well. So maybe we have a survey that's not designed as well as it could be, or maybe we're asking the wrong type of question or the wrong question type. So it allows us to make on-the-fly decisions that help us to improve our data quality, so that over time you start to notice less and less errors in the same areas, and you can hopefully kind of eliminate those or reduce those to such a manageable level that it's only a few records a week that you're cleaning. This is basically what I like to call kind of our data quality life cycle, so to speak. So when you first identify a data quality issue, whether it's a missing information, it's typos, maybe it's the incorrect date or something like that. Once you identify an issue, I always find it's best to start at the source. Always check for a solution at the field level first. So whether that's your survey that you've deployed to the field, maybe it's a little additional training for the field staff. It's always best to start at the source, because if you can prevent the issues from coming in the first place, it really reduces the time spent on back end trying to clean all these records. Obviously, there's no way to prevent every single error from ever coming in. By starting at the field level and turning your direction and turning your attention there first, it really allows you to help mitigate the risk that incorrect data gets input in the first place. If you find that the solution is not appropriate at the field level, then you can go and look at your database level and look at maybe how your tables are structured. Maybe the field type is incorrect and it's giving people errors when they submit a TerraWorks survey. And maybe we need to tweak something on that so that it looks a little nicer on the front end. And then finally, after you make any kind of change, whether it's at the field level, the database level, on the survey, you always want to monitor those data quality issues post-change. So are they getting better? Are people making less mistakes when they submit data on their mobile phones? And then this is kind of a life cycle. So the data quality is always something that you need to keep in mind, always something that you should do on a regular basis to get the best quality data that you possibly can. So since we've started doing automated reporting on Salesforce and data cleaning on a regional level for our case, but again, it could be at the project level, it could be at an organizational level, whatever is appropriate for your particular use case, we've noticed just tremendous improvements in our overall data quality. These are just a few examples here. We've significantly reduced the time spent correcting errors in our database. Now, we get a report once a week that shows us all of our issues that we know have the potential to be, data has the potential to be incorrect. All of our reports have obviously increased in accuracy. We're able to spot the data issue trends. Again, that tracker that we use allows us to aggregate issues across products, across countries, across the region really, and allows us really to target our training to our field staff when we bring them into our country offices and provide really useful information for maybe it's a technology issue, maybe it's a question issue, and it allows us to really focus our efforts in one particular area to solve a particular data quality issue, as opposed to providing training on things that the community trainers are already doing well. And probably most importantly, our teams have a lot more faith in the data that their teams or their field staff are providing to them. They're way more willing to use reports to make decisions. They don't second guess data anymore because things like a training session that occurred in 2068. They trust the data, they know it's accurate, they know that it's cleaned on a regular basis and that we're actively working to minimize the risk of data entry issues. So I've talked a lot about Salesforce reporting. That's obviously really important in the whole data quality process as a whole. But you can also do a lot on the front end as well. Paying attention to how you create surveys is really, really important in managing data quality. I can't stress this enough. Properly training field staff is probably one of the most important things you can do. It's always better to stop data quality issues at the source before they even happen. This saves you a ton of time on the back end. It's less frustrating for your field staff. Your field staff are more willing to buy into using the mobile devices and adopt the technology. You can design surveys with less room for error. TerraWorks has a spectacular hierarchy drill down feature. If you guys haven't played with that, really recommend that. It really helps you kind of narrow down the data that you enter through a nice kind of touch the screen here kind of select feature that really prevents a lot of data quality issues. Cascading selects are super helpful. Relying on single and multi-select questions rather than using open text fields. Open text fields just have a lot of potential for fat finger mistakes, and we at TechnoServe really try and avoid that when we can. And then finally, using things like barcodes and QR codes for any kind of standardized IDs that you guys may be using. When designing the survey, I know this is kind of a broken record at this point, but it's really underutilized. Is get everyone involved in helping you to create the surveys. Everyone down from testing at the field level to your project manager, to your country director. Everyone should be involved in helping you create these surveys so that they are useful, they're understandable, and your field staff will be much more willing to use the survey if they feel like they've been part of the survey creation process. And finally, one of the biggest points that I stress in Latin America just to infinity is data quality is everyone's responsibility. Putting data quality on solely your ME manager's shoulders is just not sustainable. Data quality is everyone's responsibility, from your field staff to your project teams to your country director, all the way up to your regional directors and back to headquarters. It's really kind of a team effort to make sure that we're getting the best data we can from the field. If you invest all your time and your money into implementing these mobile technology solutions, they're only as good as the people that you trust with the technology itself. So spend a lot of time training your project teams, your field staff. Anybody who's going to touch the data at all should be trained. One of the things that I can't stress enough is start cleaning your data. Don't wait. Cleaning data on a regular basis, whether that's weekly or monthly, depending on how many times a year you guys are submitting surveys, is much, much more manageable if you clean it regularly rather than waiting until a donor report is due and you have 5,000 records to clean and go through, versus maybe on a weekly basis you only have 10 to 15 records to clean. Again, using the power of automated Salesforce reporting to help catch the data quality issues for you so you don't have to go hunting for them on a record-by-record basis. Salesforce reporting is a real powerful tool. Properly setting up your Salesforce instance and TerraWorks surveys can really help your teams focus on their data and focus on the data that matters to them. Your project teams are the closest people to this data, and it makes sense to have them go through the data and go through these reports that you're generating. So whether that's setting up permissions in your role hierarchies in Salesforce so that teams are focused on only their project's data, setting up list views for your team so that they can sort through a lot of records at once and quickly edit the records if they spot a quality issue. And again, the hierarchy drill downs, cascading selects, and TerraWorks are just tremendously helpful tools. One of the things that I think we still struggle with at TechnoServe is getting the data to the people that it really needs to be at. So love for these reports to eventually trickle their way down to our field staff supervisors and to the field staff, because they're the ones who are the closest to the front lines collecting this data. We'd love to have them involved in the data quality process and that data quality life cycle that I showed you guys. It's really everyone's responsibility. So the closer we can get that data, and this is one thing we're working on, is getting that data as close to the source as possible so that we can identify data quality issues, clean the data, and ultimately have better reports and much more trustable data. So that's the end of my spiel. Thank you very much for listening. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'll turn it back over to Elaine here in just a second. Hear what you guys are doing. I'd love to answer any questions. My email, my Skype are both here. Both are great ways to reach me. Feel free to add me on Skype and ping me with any questions or comments that you guys have. I'd love to hear some feedback from you. So thank you very much, and I will turn it back over to Elaine.
Great, thanks so much, Kevin. That was super interesting. I think I learned a lot as well. Let me just show my screen here. Back. Okay, so I think just a couple notes. First of all, please feel free to put in your questions. I think that was super thorough, but yeah, let us know how else have others gone about ensuring data quality. Are there other tips that you want to share with the team? Other questions about clarifying anything that Kevin's gone over? So while we're just doing that, just a couple thoughts that I had. I love the idea of negative reporting. I've never heard that term before, but I think the concept is great. Creating reports that focus on those problem areas. Actually, I was having a side conversation here about actually a new feature. Maybe we can put in date range restrictions, so they'll get an error message if they go put in a future date. So I think to that end, I almost say another step in that life cycle, Kevin, that you have is to let our team know what those issues are, because there might be something that we can do to help or put into the tool.
Absolutely.
Cool. I don't see any questions. Kevin, I guess your presentation was just super thorough. What are some of the issues that people said in the poll were misspellings, missing data. Do you think that these tips that Kevin's outlining will help with that? Okay, let's unmute some people here. Sarah Leppert, I'm going to unmute you. Could you just introduce yourself and then your organization and ask a question?
Hi, Kevin. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's really informative. And I'm just curious, you had different M&E systems for all the different projects in Latin America, so trying to get everyone on board to use one particular system, how did that work with your organization? Was it pretty difficult to get everyone on board, and then, just making the pitch to your managers, and then how did you roll it out within the region?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. It all goes back to, I can't stress this enough, is proper planning. One of the main things that we did was we looked at kind of the portfolio of agriculture projects. Myself and Kate Diaz, who is also on here, is our regional ME manager for Latin America, looked at all of our projects that we had across the region and looked at their kind of core set of indicators. What is it that they really care about? And what is it that we know that all project teams are going to want to see? So we kind of took all of their project plans and project design documentation and kind of pushed them all together and did a rather extensive mapping process to say, okay, all projects seem to want to know about attendance rates. All projects seem to want to know about adoption rates and things like that. So we were able to identify kind of a core set of indicators and then shop that around with our country directors and our project managers and our M&E managers and get their feedback on things to add and things to take out. Once we were there, we were able to create kind of a data model on our end that basically encompassed all of the fields that we would need to create these types of reports that teams expressed interest in wanting. And then to on about, obviously with TerraWorks' help, they helped us kind of develop the Salesforce database, develop some of our initial surveys that we use region-wide, and then picked about 4 or 5 projects to pilot this for us. So we did about a 2 or 3 month pilot with 4 projects, a mix of projects that were new, a mix of projects that existed, and we had to import their data, and then kind of turned them loose with the technology. And really kind of closely monitored all of the issues that were being reported. We made tweaks along the way, so it was kind of an iterative testing testing use life cycle. And we just wrapped up our pilot a couple of months ago, and we have a couple of projects now who are just starting in the region that are going to be joining our regional database. So we're really excited to see it grow, and really excited to add more projects and as much data in there as possible.
Thanks, Sarah. So Esther at Systemobile Bolsa also has a question, and this is related to something else that came up in questions. But could you share a step-by-step manual on how to build the Google Doc templates to fix issues and import them back to Salesforce? Is there kind of some process that you went through to create that? And also for the data accuracy tracker, I think a related question around that is, can you talk a little bit more about, I guess, tactically, how do you actually get the information into the accuracy tracker? Those two reports.
Sure. So as far as the step-by-step guide, one of the bits that we're still working on in our database is really creating some robust documentation. So that's in the queue. I'd be more than happy to share with you, though, or if you want to Skype offline here, about how we actually created that. I can send you a couple of examples of some of the templates that we use. I'd be more than happy to do that. And then if you've never used the data loader before, it's both a really powerful tool and potentially a slightly dangerous tool. So you really do have to be careful with it. But I'm more than happy to walk you through kind of how to do that. It's a pretty nice user interface to map your fields and things like that and do the data upload. Without taking up too much time here to explain how to do that. But if you shoot me an email, I'd love to connect about that. Second question was about the accuracy tracker. So again, this is kind of a template that we set up. It's really nice if you take your fields that come straight out of your report and put them as kind of headers on your Google Sheet or your Excel sheet. And then as you find all of the records that you need to clean, if you include the right fields in there, like maybe your field staff name, maybe the date it was collected, the date it was cleaned is also really important. And all the different pieces of information from that export that you get out of your automated Salesforce report, you can basically copy and paste that right into your accuracy tracker and just kind of keep adding to it and adding to it. And then you can use the filters in Google Sheets to kind of say, okay, show me all the errors from this particular field staff, or show me all the errors from this this date range. And then some of the other kind of built-in functionality with Google Sheets formulas and Excel formulas, you could do a count to say how many records do we have that needed to be cleaned from Kevin in the field. Okay, maybe he had 100 errors in the past 6 months, and then you can kind of drill down into the field staff that have the most errors and maybe provide some targeting training to those particular field staff instead of having all of your field staff come in for a review. So it largely depends on the report that you guys generate from Salesforce, but if you set that up in Google Sheets and kind of copy paste those records in as you clean them, it's kind of I think it takes me about an hour every Monday to clean our entire region's database and send out the appropriate reports to our field teams. And again, that time reduces and reduces every week as we provide more targeted training and make changes on the front end to help our teams enter data more accurately from the start. And again, I can share that accuracy tracker with you if you'd like, and kind of show you how we set that up. It's pretty straightforward, so we definitely chat offline about that.
Great. Another question is, other than checking for dates, what other negative reports are there that you run?
That's a great question. We run, I think it's about 6 or 7 different reports now. We run obviously the training dates. A few of our teams in particular are interested in having the national ID numbers of all of their participants. So one of the reports that we run every week is giving all participants with a missing national ID number. Or we run a report that highlights the potential for duplicate training entry, duplicate training sessions. So if we see that Farmer Kevin has 2 entries for Module 4 on the same date and both say present, then that's obviously probably a duplicate. But just to be sure, those are the types of records that we send out to our field staff to say, or our supervisors or our M&E managers, and say, hey, you might want to check these out. These appear like duplicates. Can you confirm? And then once they send those back and say, yep, these are duplicates, then we can go in and erase those or make the adjustments as necessary. Some of the other ones would be any kind of missing information, or you could run, if you're interested in particular geographies or things like that, you could say, show me all departments in this municipality with a mismatched locality or something like that. So there's really no limit to what you can do. We tend to focus a lot on missing information because completeness of data is really important to the projects that we have. But as more projects join and they find that they require a certain piece of the data to be complete or a certain piece of data to be absolutely correct, we can either create a new report or modify an existing report to really fit that team's needs. So hopefully that helped out a bit.
Yeah, great. Actually, you touched on this in your response, but you mentioned providing reports back out to the field. Can you talk about what are all of the different tools or processes or channels that you use to provide those feedback loops back to the field force?
Yes, that's a great question. So obviously with Salesforce reporting out of the box, you can send reports to anybody that has a Salesforce login. In our particular case, our M&E managers and our project managers have Salesforce logins. So if that's the case, you can send those particular reports and use the filters again to say, okay, only this particular project, show me only results from this particular project with these sets of fields, and send that to that particular Salesforce user. There's a bunch of different apps that you guys can pick out of the App Exchange. Again, one is called IntelliMail. I think there's a small subscription fee with IntelliMail, but there are others out there that do a similar task where you can send out reports to anybody with an email address. So if your supervisors or your field staff have an email address, or perhaps set like a shared email account where teams can go in and grab the reports that they need. It varies widely by the organization in the particular project, but there are a lot of tools out there like the ones I mentioned where you can get the reports out to as close to the front lines that you can get, because that's where it's best used with the people that are closest to the actual trainings or the firms themselves or business, or however you guys may be using Salesforce and TerraWorks.
Yeah, that's great. So then you actually send these reports to trainers, and then they take it upon themselves to kind of mention that issue in the next time.
Yep, that's one of the pieces you can that we're honestly still working on ourselves is getting that data further and further towards the front lines where it's best used. But realistically, anybody with an email address could get a scheduled report just the same as anybody else who has a Salesforce login.
Great. I think those are all the questions. So last call for any things you want to share. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Kevin. This was super helpful for us and hopefully for everybody else on the call. I got a lot of comments for clap, clap, clap. So thanks for sharing all of your knowledge and tips. So I think with that, we'll make sure that everyone gets these slides. Feel free to follow up with Kevin directly if you have questions, or with anyone on the TerraWorks team if you want to see how we can help you kind of do the same. So with that, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Elaine.
Bye, Kevin.